Hi there. I've been doing quite a bit of vibe coding over the past few weeks, and really interesting stuff. Learning a lot. I've been talking to friends and colleagues about some of the pros and cons that I see as I try to understand this new world that we have with Gen AI and LLMs. There's a couple of things that are in my mind as an engineer. One is documentation, and the other is support, because clearly the potential for productivity boosts with vibe coding is tremendous. But at the same time, I wonder if I don't really know how the underpinnings of something I've created with Gen AI actually works. How easy is it going to be for me to support people who come to me, my customers, my users? They have questions. Will I be able to give them clear, concise answers? I'm not sure. I think there's a conversation there. I don't know the answers to this. I wonder about where we're going to end up with all of this. And the other issue is that for sort of 6 months plus, I've been having increasing difficulty sort of with documentation. We use a lot of third-party software components and hardware components. We integrate them into the products that we produce. And typically, part of my workflow, my engineering workflow, would be that I go to, a website or whatever, and I have a look at the documentation for the product, and I form a kind of rough, just scan it, and I form a rough opinion of what I think of that project, because clearly, if there's good documentation, I've always been able to assume that there's a lot of sort of, investiture in that project, and that's generally been a good steer for me. But more recently, I've been to websites that seem to have great documentation, comprehensive, very swish. But when I work with the products, I, inevitably run into some trouble, and I'm trying to figure out the answers, go and look at the documentation, and I just can't seem to find the answers that I need. And I haven't really had that problem before so much. And I've been saying to myself, maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe I'm losing my touch. Maybe I am. Um, but this is a relatively new thing for me, and you wonder what's changed. Then when I started working with the LLMs and generating some documentation, these projects I've been vibe coding, it kind of reminds me of the documentation I've been struggling with. So I thought, does this mean that this stuff is AI generated, and is maybe that's some of why I'm having some trouble? So talking to a good friend of mine, a guy called Julian Todd, who we get together for Sunday morning coding and coffee, chat about these things, and he said to me, "Well, why don't you find out? Why don't you sort of get something that'll check these web pages?" And I thought, aha, because he was talking about what the academic institutions use, wasn't he, to check if the kids are, they're getting AI to write their homework for them. Well, we could do that, couldn't we? So that was quite exciting. And then we thought, well, seeing as we're vibe coding, why don't I see if I can vibe code a browser extension to do that stuff? And I have no idea how to write a browser extension, never done it, but why not? So that's exactly what we did. I went off to my good friend Claude and said, we started off in the chat mode. I said, can you write me a browser extension, Claude, and can you check the pages I visit, and can you figure out if it's AI or not? Wow. And off Claude went, and Claude did that for me. Generated a bunch of files, do information. We put a GitHub repo together out of the back of all of that, told me what they were doing. And indeed, you can go off to the DD org, and we've got an AI sniffer extension there for you to play with now. Very rough and ready. This was like 5 minutes of work, okay? But it works. So I ran it up, and I did some testing. Didn't work very well. And the problem was that what it had put together for me used a set of sort of local algorithms, heuristics to work out whether it thought something was an AI or not. And it just wasn't working very well. So I went back to Claude, I actually moved over to an API version. I said, could you tell me, what options are out there on the interwebs for, AI content detection with an API? And Claude came back, and I never heard of these before, but there's a number. There's GPTZero, Winston, so all sorts, Sapling. A lot of these seem to be, paid for entirely reasonably, and I guess that a lot of the targets will be academic institutions and that type of thing. So I had a little look at them, and I got going with one of them, which was Sapling, which seems to give you a kind of limited free tier to do a little bit of experimentation. So I asked Claude to make those changes and implement the professional APIs. Claude did, and ended up with another iteration, version 2 of this stuff. I then moved over to my good friend Chat LLM, which lets me, it's easier to kind of pull in the files for the repository and do the updates. So I kind of finessed it a little bit with that. You see these files here that it's broken out. This is my browser extension. Once I was happy with that, I said, okay, give me a git commit to push into the repository, which I did. If we go over to the repository, it is fantastic. The README is saying to me, this is what you need to do to get the API set up. This is how you get everything up and running. Unbelievably brilliant. So I go into the extensions. I've got myself in developer mode, and I'm loading my AI sniffer extension here. Hey presto, version 2 is with us. Wow, never written one of these before in my life, and I wouldn't have been able to now without Claude. So we'll just display that on my title bar there. I could probably do the icon that they generated isn't the best. I'll probably improve that. So it's telling me we've got enhanced with AI detection API. Super. So let's give this a go. If I go to our own home website, such as it is, and I load that up, the newly loaded extension will run up into being and give me the option to analyze the page. I'm doing that manually because there's obviously some kind of rate limit or free tier limit on this stuff, and I don't want to do it all the time. So if I analyze that page, it says to me that it's likely to be human written, which indeed it is, because I wrote that. So that's a good start. Okay, let's try something else. We popped down to the Blue Light Show last week, which was a great event, and I did a little write-up of that, and I used Gen AI to help me with this write-up, and then sort of tweaked it a tiny little bit, not very much, and I put it onto one of the posts on the webpage. So let's have a look and see what it thinks of this. Wow. So yeah, it's likely to be AI generated, which indeed it is. My word, that's 2 for 2. There's a friend of ours we do a bit of work with, a chap who runs Immersive Home. It's a kind of AR mixed reality type of thing. Very, very cool. If you like that stuff, go take a look. Now I'm told that he wrote this website of his. So let's check, see what that tells us. Likely human written. Wow, 3 for 3. So now, for no particularly, good reason, let's go to a random company which provides documentation for embedded devices, Nordic. We work with some of this kit, and let's go to one of those parts and look at some documentation. I am absolutely intrigued to know what this third-party tool Sapling that we've vibe coded here into our browser extension thinks of the documentation. So let's analyze this page. Well, it's likely that this documentation is AI generated. So, from a coffee Sunday morning chat, 10-15 minutes later, we've got a browser extension that we can use to do the thing that we were positing it might be fun to do. Now, I don't know if this is right. I can't tell you whether this is AI generated or not. This might be entirely wrong. It got the other pages right. It's a third-party tool, not something I've come up with, Sapling. But isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So actually has taken longer to do this video for you than to actually write and integrate all of this stuff. It's clearly a brave new world. So I will leave you with that thought, and I will wish you a very happy day. Thank you very much.